So something that's been kind of absurd to me that I've only started thinking about again recently is how the ultra rich basically just don't pay any taxes. Like I remember there was some headline at some point where it's like Jeff Bezos pays $0 in taxes because of like some legal loophole or whatever. And I think recently I just started thinking like why, like how does that actually work, and like how does that happen? Like how is that even allowed? So doing more research, find out about this, like I guess how exactly the loophole works, and it goes back to the idea of an inheritance tax, or also marketed as a death tax. And there's this mantra that is tossed around where it is buy, borrow, die. And essentially there's like 4 steps to the system where you buy, you accumulate wealth, and it grows. And over this growth, you're able to accumulate wealth, basically. Say you start a company, it gets really big, and then now you have like a lot of capital. The second step is kind of to hold. You continue to grow, your business expands, capitalism, you make a bunch of money, but you reach a certain point where you are paying a crap ton in taxes, and it is taking away from, you as now a rich person. It's like you want to save those millions of dollars. And the idea is with number 3, you're borrowing against all the money that you already have. So whether that's assets like houses or real estate, or other things like your stocks, bonds, other assets you have, you're basically saying, hey, give me a loan of, $1 million. And then if I don't pay it back, you can have these assets that are worth like $10 million, because, the $10 million, they're probably going to still be around. Like the stocks aren't going to change that much, is what you would say. And then so now that the person has this money of $1 million, it's a loan. So you have to pay it back at some point. So you can spend it on whatever. Maybe instead of 1 million, it's like 1 billion if you're ultra rich. And you buy like, fancy food, a yacht, whatever. And then my thinking was always, well, you have to pay back that loan at some point. You need to, at some point, either sell off some of your real estate or sell off some of your stock in order to get the actual value back, or like the money, so you can pay off those loans. But as I've learned, what you can do is essentially continually defer that loan indefinitely. So say, I have a $1 million loan this year. Next year, I'm going to take another $1 million loan because I have, $1 billion in assets. I could do this 1,000 times, but I'm just going to continually stack that debt. So instead of saying, oh, I'll give you $10 million in my stock if I can't pay it back, I'll give you 30 million and then like 100 million or something. It's like you can continually stack that debt. And you never need to pay it back because you can continually put more of your asset on the line. You never need to actually withdraw any money to pay off that debt. Anyways, so the idea is eventually you get old and you get to a point where you are probably going to pass away, but you still have all this debt, but you can offload it to your kids. So when you do that, it's essentially you taking all of your current assets now at their new value. You accumulate all this wealth, you haven't paid any tax, you haven't sold, it's just been buy. When it gets transferred to your heirs, they pay no taxes at all. They get it at face value and it resets. So basically now you have all this accumulated wealth that does not get taxed and is essentially given to your heirs for free. Maybe I can give a more concrete example where, let's say you buy a Pokemon card, you buy a Charizard for $500, and over time it just continually accumulates in value. Like maybe after like a couple years, it's worth $100,000. So what you can do now is say you need to like buy a house or something, and for some reason the down payment's only like, or say like a car, I don't know, just go with the example. You need to buy a house, so you're gonna make a big purchase, but you don't want to sell your Charizard because then you get taxed. You have to pay like a huge percent of that, maybe 40% or something into tax. So then instead of doing that, what you're gonna do is say, hey, I'm gonna get a loan and I'm gonna use this Charizard as collateral. If you loan me $10,000 and I don't pay you back the $10,000, you get this card. Now that I have $10,000, I can use that, spend on whatever I want. So in this case, I get the down payment for the house. And now that I have the down payment for the house, I can enjoy it. I can use it, live with it, whatever. And let's say I don't pay that back. Every year I defer it. Maybe there's like some small fee of like additional $10 that gets added to the cost. So instead of owing back just, $10,100, because obviously there's interest, instead of owing back $10,100, now I owe back $10,200. Or every year, maybe I owe back $10,500. So let's say by the time I'm old and gray and I'm gonna die, this card is now worth $500,000. $500,000 card. I've taken a bunch of loans. I've taken $100,000 in loans, and I owe back $200,000 or something. When this card gets passed down to my kid, they pay no taxes of the gains. Take in, when I initially bought this card, I only paid $500. That's all the amount that I ever bought with. But now that my kid is going to get $500,000 of value minus $200,000 of debt or whatever. Usually it's much lower percentage, but they get no taxes on that. So they just get $300,000 raw, straight, for free, untaxed, which is absurd. Because yes, there's a terrible sentiment around what people would call like a death tax, because essentially you don't want to say, oh, my dad died and now I'm getting taxed. Like nobody wants to hear that. But what in reality is happening is it's literally just marketed a different way. Like it's also an inheritance tax, because the person that's taking your assets is not being taxed. Like I feel like there should be some way for this person to have that wealth be accounted for in terms of the tax brackets. And essentially this is how, like, as you hear, the rich stay rich, because with that base level, $500,000 that's given to my kid, you can offload the debt, whatever, it cancels out. They just got $300,000 that was untaxed. And you could argue in a perfectly capitalistic society it makes sense, because for me as the father or mother or person who accumulated all this wealth, I worked hard, I had to provide for my family, and then they get to reap the rewards. And then the rewards are this money that is given to them. But I don't think it should be handed off for free. Like I feel like there should be some amount of responsibility that's accounted for to not have them handed this for free, because that's like this is just the epitome of like being born with privilege, because you have all of this money that's just literally given to you on a silver platter for free, untaxed. It doesn't go back into the economy anyway, besides saving and spending it yourself. And the way that the cycle continues is, now that the kid has $300,000, they are on a much better starting point to buy into things like even more stocks, even more houses, even more Pokemon cards, for example, that'll continue to only grow in value. If you think about that, like the housing market, stock market, they have only grown in value. And part of that is because the sentiment is that the economy is going to keep growing. The problem is that the gap to get into the market is just too wide. If you're not already part of the boat of people who have, a shit ton of money in the stock market that's going to keep growing, like you're just getting left behind. And so I think overall the point is, I think it makes sense to introduce some kind of inheritance tax or death tax. It doesn't have to be absurd, because you don't want to have all of your wealth get taken away whenever you die. But like something even as small as like 0.1%, even like that alone would make such a dramatic difference in the income taxes. And people don't know about this. People don't speak about it. People aren't motivated enough to motivate their politicians to talk and vote about these kinds of things. So nothing ever changes. If that were to change, maybe something changes, but I feel like this is an issue that just isn't being talked about enough. Because I feel like, say, magically, you could add a 10% tax on inheritance, which is still, sizable. 9%, let's market it. You get taxed 9% based on when your kid inherited your things. Like that alone, it would make such a huge, I don't have the numbers. I'll probably calculate the numbers at some point, but I feel like that would make such a huge difference in how the government will be able to balance its budget and lead to a better society or something. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Also trying out, I think, this video format partially to see how it feels, but also to get more comfortable talking and editing myself. So, yeah. Peace.